The Symbiotes from C.M. Kozeman's All Tomorrows are a future human race of people. Like all of the future humans that we meet in the book, the symbiote species began its journey as star people, intergalactic explorers who were eventually captured, conquered, and then genetically modified by an alien race known as the Q. As punishment for managing to turn back the Q's first attempt at invasion, the star people of one world were modified into something resembling the Australopithecus that lived on Earth in ancient times. Compared to other Q creations whose ancestors had managed to temporarily fend off the Q, this would seem at first to be a fairly light sentence. However, this was not the full extent of their punishment. A kind of human tick-like species known as the parasites were also created from the star people. There were a few different varieties, but the most common was about the size of a human fist, pictured here. The parasites would latch on to the new ape men and live off of them, sucking their blood for sustenance. This was all played out under the watchful and sadistic eye of the Q for an agonizing 40 million years, until they left. Because it was such a bizarre and artificial ecosystem that the hosts and parasites inhabited, which required constant maintenance from the Q, most of these life forms died out once their creators had gone, but not all of them perished, however. The survivors would once again begin the slow and painful evolutionary process. After a time, the host-parasite relationship would become less one-sided. Instead of a parasite merely attaching itself to a host and bleeding it dry, it would have evolved attributes that would provide the host with advantages it didn't possess before, making this a more cooperative arrangement. It would seem that by this point, the two could establish a sort of neural connection, and with a parasite attachment, the host would gain, for example, a second pair of eyes which would come in handy when on the lookout for predators. Other parasites could offer the hosts the ability to produce venomous saliva. In turn, the host offered the parasite a more mobile lifestyle and a stronger body rich with blood. This would continue over many millions of years until they reached the point where full sentience had developed. At this stage, the parasites could now offer the hosts the ability to think on a higher level in return for total submission. The parasites would become the pilots of the larger human bodies of the hosts, thus becoming the symbiotes. It began in a way much like a horse and its rider, where the parasite could control the host, which was still able to think for itself, using verbal commands and physical action. But after a few 100,000 years, the parasites would develop the ability to control the hosts like puppets, using a combination of olfactory and tactile signals. After a few more thousand years, the symbiotes would develop civilizations much like our own, with countries, politics, and of course, wars. The intelligent parasites would eventually develop technologies which would take care of much of their needs, but they didn't drop the hosts completely. Host husbandry was retained due to tradition and efficiency. The parasite side of the symbiosis would have a host for work, a host for leisurely pursuits, and probably others used for different activities. After much time, many millions of years, the symbiotes would learn of their history, piecing together what had happened many tens of millions of years before with the Q and the star people. Like their cousins on other worlds, they would begin to try and reach out to them, broadcasting signals into space in the hope of someone picking them up. They did. The symbiotes would make contact with other future human species, who had by this point established the Second Galactic Empire. The symbiotes were among the third wave of species to join. The symbiotes would spend the next 20 million years as dutiful members of the Empire, and would have achieved things completely beyond our scope of imagination. But nothing lasts forever. After a staggering 80 million years, the symbiotes and the rest of the Empire came to a violent end at the hands of the maniacal species known as the gravital. These were a species of future human that considered itself the only true heirs to the star people, and took it upon themselves to wipe out all the others who they saw as inferior and unworthy. Such extinctions, however, were commonplace in the galaxy. They had lived lives just as human as our own, and achieved an untold number of accomplishments throughout their existence. But now the symbiotes were gone. Humanity, however, was not. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit the like button, comment, share and subscribe, and you can now donate by becoming a member of the channel or becoming a patron through Patreon. This has been Beware the Q, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.